people saw that. And many people were inspired by that. And they wanted to actually join him. And they did. That eventually gave rise to what we know as the Franciscan order, named for him, of course. And so people like him in this time period really began to bring about a spiritual renewal and a reform of the church, and to get away from some of the, worrying about lords and power and position and all that sort of thing. It's also the age of the Crusades, which originally had a pretty decent intent of recapturing the Holy Land from Muslim control, but that got a little out of hand in some ways too. And kind of fell away maybe somewhat from the original intent, but that was also going on in this period of history. Okay. It was some of the less than good things that were going on that a certain man by the name of Martin Luther also noticed. And originally he did not intend to leave the Catholic Church, but through some fault on his part and the church's part, both, takes two to tango. In 1517, he left the Catholic Church and did it with a kind of, by the act of posting a number of what he called theses on the cathedral door at Wittenberg, Germany. And he was actually a monk, Martin Luther. So this instituted quite a movement, and we know this, of course, as Protestantism. People began to break away from the Catholic Church. And of course, we still know that today. And the church has, there's probably more Protestant denominations now than there was then. It continues to grow. So in one sense, okay, it's good, it continues to grow, but in another sense, it's also a kind of a continuation of the splintering of the church. And it's more and more and more and more and more pieces, if you will. Nonetheless, that's what happened. Well, he did have some good points. In some ways, we certainly disagree, went too far, but he did actually have some points. And so it did actually get the ball rolling for another reform. And the church reacted. So they called a big general council and convened it in a place called Trent. And the Council of Trent is where, we get what's called the rite of celebrating Mass called the Tridentine, which is what we knew, which was, it's in Latin and the priest has back to you and all that stuff. That's the Tridentine Rite Mass, which was continued to be used for about 400 years until the Second Vatican Council in the 1960s. It was also, when it became mandatory that any man to be ordained a priest would have to go to seminary. It wasn't mandatory until this point. That actually started the Council of Trent, okay, which was in the 1560s. Of course, more relevant to us then, I know I'm skating through this pretty quick, but I told you I was hitting the highlights. It was also about this point in history where certain explorers from Europe began to sail and to explore the New World, as they call it, which of course is how we got here eventually. history of our nation. Initially, there were some Catholics here in the early years. They tended to live in pockets, particularly in Maryland. Was the biggest pocket of them. Also in Pennsylvania and other places. But it was honestly, it was a kind of a tenuous relationship. You know, Catholics in the early years of our nation were actually quite persecuted. In fact, it only lasted about a year, but I remember discovering this, doing a paper in seminary and researching. But they called it, actually back then they called it popery. They called it Catholicism, and that was a derogatory term. And they actually outlawed it in Maryland for about a year. It was against the law to practice popery or Catholicism. But that didn't last long. What seemed to change the tide more than anything was really after the Civil War with the Industrial Revolution, and immigrants began to pour over from Europe, and many of them Catholic. Now all of a sudden, with all these people immigrating to our country, now Catholics quickly became the largest denomination in the United States, and it's remained so since then. Then, as I mentioned, in the 1960s, the church saw a need to they wanted to try to figure out a way to better address life in the modern world, because, you know, in the last 100 years or so, our culture's changed immensely. So seeing that going on, they knew that they needed to try to address that. So called a council there in Rome, Second Vatican Council, 1962 to 1965. So with that, they devised a new rite of Mass. Part of that meant the priest turned around, faced the people, and could be said in the vernacular, in other words, the language of the place, here meaning English. Rcia, it just really comes out of the Second Vatican Council, because largely what the council did was they looked to the very beginning of the church, first century, and said, we need to go back that way. And that's largely what they did. And so when people became Christians in the first century, where they went through a catechesis, and it was done with the whole community. And then when they were ready, then they were brought in at the Easter Vigil before Easter Sunday, which then was truly a vigil all night long. And so that gave rise to Rcia. So here we are.
When did you say that was? 1965?
1962 to 1965. It's the Second Vatican Council. Father Freddie's an old history teacher. You got anything you want to embellish or add? Or
He's not 100 years old.
That is just skipping a few outlines. It's a long history. Any questions? You're that mesmerized, huh? Okay. You know, there are, we'll get to the rights here in a second. You know, the truth is often